Hello and welcome to another episode of Workplace Wizards podcast. I'm your host, Arnell Smalley, and today we're going to talk about how effective leaders have 5 leadership principles. And I'm joined today with our co-host, coming all the way from London, England, is our man Gavin Wong. How you
Hi,
doing, Gavin?
afternoon. How are we doing?
Good, good, good. Good to see you back, Gavin. How was your week?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, buddy. It's been a bit busy. As you know, I've moved into a new house. There's quite a lot to do, so yeah, it's all we're getting there.
Yeah, Gavin, I'm paying you too much money if you buying new houses and stuff.
I'm waiting for that first check.
Are you? You still just hold on? It's in the mail, Gavin. You know how slow the process is sending stuff overseas. It's on a rowboat. It's on a rowboat. It's on its way.
Yeah. We'll wait and see.
Last week, Gavin. Last week we talked about how certain different ways of people delegating. Delegating leaderships, delegating some of their authority to others, and you gave an explicit way of how you let them mostly do it on their own. And then I talked a little bit about how trying to make sure they do it right. I do a little bit more micromanaging, I guess, and
Yes.
and until I get to feel of they can handle it, then I
Yeah.
I give them a little bit more autonomy. But today we're going to talk about some 5 leadership principles, and let's discuss those 5 leadership principles. Number 1 is model the way. Number 2 is inspire a shared vision. Number 3 is challenge the process. Number 4 is enable others to act. That's kind of what we talked about last week.
Mhm.
And then the last one is encourage the heart.
Mhm.
So what do you think about those 5 principles? And have you heard those before?
Yeah, I mean, these are quite famous principles about leadership. I think they go back quite a long way, but they're really important. I think when you look at the first one, that's for me, and from my background, I guess that's an important one because a lot of it's about values, how we
Right.
lead, and about our integrity and the way we, what values are really strong to us. So in terms of fairness and honesty and consistency, that's really important because people are really driven by values, and it helps them to have some kind of psychological safety within work, so they know who are going all over the place. Yeah, so they kind of know what to expect, and it's important that this thing about values, that if we step on people's values, that has the same effect neurologically as a physical assault. So when people feel that they've been treated unfairly, that's massive because they respond emotionally, and it's really cool. And the difference between that and a physical assault is that it will have lasting. So if I asked you about, you're in law enforcement, you may have been assaulted many years ago, but if I ask you about it now, you probably don't remember the pain. You might remember the embarrassment about it or the fear, but it'll all be about emotion. So that's the thing that drives us, for longer term. So emotions are really important. So having some really good values is important. So I think that's a really good starting point for any kind of leadership approach, to know where you stand with your values.
Okay. I like that, Gavin. However, I took a different way when I looked at model the way.
Okay.
When I looked at model the way, it's when you're asking somebody to do something, if you're not willing to do it yourself,
Yes.
you don't have that connection of oh, well, he's making me do all the grunt work. Where as a great leader, sometimes you need to jump in there and jump in the weeds and cut some of the weeds down yourself to show that, hey, you're part of the team and nothing is beneath you. So when I look at model the way, it's a way of showing that, hey, follow my example.
Yes.
Be willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And then you can have the expectation that anybody else will also be willing to do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yeah.
I guess
Sorry, I don't disagree with that. I think that's right, Smalls, because but that behavior will be modeled on values. Essentially, it will be that thing about trust. It'll be that thing about being involved, prepared to get stuck in. So all those things play out, but there will be, I think that idea of being a role model is key anyway, because if you're a good role model, people know what good looks like. They know happens when you do things wrong. They know what gets punished. So you're setting standards as well. But because you could lead or be a role model in the sense that you've got bad behaviors and bad values, and people copy that because that's what gets success. So you want to be a role model based on positive values as well, I would suggest.
Okay, I like that. Let's jump to number two. And inspired a shared vision. Inspired a shared vision. I'll start with this one.
Go on.
Basically, actually, we discussed this before, how you want everybody to be on the same page. And we talked about how some people join an organization based off of the concept of that organization. Like you mentioned before, law enforcement, and most people, especially back in the day, most people would join law enforcement because they wanted to serve. They wanted to protect the public. They wanted to serve the public and get into law enforcement in that way. And I think you expressed that a little bit as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think even now, because what does someone in their mind protect the public really mean? Again, that means different things. But what you're looking at, particularly with some very successful organizations over the years, like Disney is a very good example. Disney himself wasn't the greatest leader, but what he was able to do was that he was able to, the people that joined him and his innovation, people were excited by that. They had this shared vision. They wanted to be part of this new thing that created media that people will see, and it was all different, and people bought into that. So sometimes, despite his leadership style, people were so bought into that shared mission and dream that was able to carry things on. And that's why, and most people will join an organization for a specific reason. It might just be money. In sales, for example, I might join this company because I can make lots of money. I might join Nike or whoever because I like Apple. I like the brand. This is what I really value, the brand. So that's what draws people to these companies. But of course, if they get there and they're not able to fulfill their dreams or their motivation for joining, that's when people aren't so well engaged. Okay.
Right, because that's where you focus on the first word of that, inspire a shared vision. And it's not just having a shared vision, but you also need to inspire it. And Workplace Wizard, that's one of the things that we're trying to teach is we want to inspire leaders to inspire others. And that's our motto for Workplace Wizards, inspiring leaders to inspire others. And that deals right with number 2, inspired a shared vision. So that covers that a little bit. Let's talk about number 3, challenge the process. Challenge the process.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. If you we've spoken about things won't change if things don't change.
Nothing changes.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
If nothing changes.
And this is a good example of that in leadership, because if you want things to improve, okay, you're going to have to do something else. Okay. Now you might wait. You could wait, but you're not in control of that. So you need to think about things you can control. And if you want things to change, you're going to have to do something proactive to do that. So I think for me, you need to be able to challenge processes, because what tends to happen is that people make assumptions, or we accept processes, and we don't challenge enough because we've already done it that way. And one of the things from law enforcement, from investigations over here, is that in major crime they talk about ABC of investigations. And if you're taking over a new investigation and you're looking at how things are progressing, it could, like, A is accept nothing, believe nobody, and check everything. Okay, so it really encourages you to challenge.
Say that again.
Accept nothing, believe nobody, check everything. Okay. Or corroborate everything. It's really good. Yes. And actually, I talk to people in our leadership course and say, actually, when you take over a new team, that's a really good approach. Because people will say to you, very often you'll take over a new team, you'll ask the previous line manager, or you'll talk to other people, and they'll give you a view on teams, on individuals. And they could be right, but they might not be. Okay, because some people just need a little bit of space. So don't accept everything. Don't believe everybody. Okay, because who are you going to talk to when you first get a job in a new team? There's always going to be someone who's in your ear, aren't they?
Right.
Okay, because they are just that type of person. Doesn't mean they're right, but they're the first person you speak to, and it's very easy to accept what they say as the truth or being accurate. So I think that thing about challenging processes and just challenging assumptions is really important, because if you want to get that change, you need to work out what can be changed, what needs to be changed.
Okay. Oh, and then the fourth one, Gavin, is enable others to act. Like last week, we just talked about this last week, where how we have different processes or different ways of delegating. We talked about that last week. And this is number 4 in itself. It's enabling others to act. So we covered that last week. So that
we have, but just quickly on that, what I'd say is that in order to allow people to be able to act, you've got to make them competent. So, because there's no point in giving someone autonomy if they haven't actually got the skills to do something. So part of the leadership role is to make sure that they have the training and the confidence and everything else to be able to eventually have the autonomy.
But we did discuss that, though.
Yeah, definitely.
We discussed that.
I'm just clarifying.
And then the last one, Gavin, encourage the heart. How important is that one? Because that to me is the whole process of why you don't have the turnover, is because not only did you inspire the vision, and a shared vision, but you also encourage the heart and understand that, you have that empathy. And this is where we get back to our emotional intelligence. And you got to be very self-aware of how your actions are affecting others.
Yes.
And how are you motivating others? We talked about a lot of these things in our previous podcast, but encouraging the heart is probably the biggest emotional intelligence of these 3 or these 5. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is about motivating, because why do we need to motivate? Well, the reality is that nothing's ever constant. So there'll be times when things are tough. And this might be a tough day. It might be a tough period or whatever it may be. Sales are going down, or outputs going down, whatever it may be. The external forces are having or influencing how you are. And actually, this is where the leadership is key, to be able to motivate the staff to get them through those difficult times. You can actually, if you think about it, when things are going well, you don't really need much leadership.
Don't need much motivation.
You don't need much motivation, but you are going to need to be motivated when things are more challenging.
Right.
And that's where the leader comes in. So quite right. I mean, for me, that is one of the most important aspects, really. I mean, they all link together, don't they? But the role of a leader is like, right, how do I motivate my staff? How can I, inspire them and get them through and keep going when things are difficult? And how can I kind of tie into give them autonomous motivation, so they feel that they're making the decisions to change. So that's really, really, really key. And I think that's one that hopefully what we're talking about helps people to improve how they lead people and motivate people.
Okay, Gavin, where can people find these 5 principles of leadership? I think they're in one of the books was the Exemplary Leadership, 5 Principles of Exemplary Leadership. Yeah,
I think they're called the Exemplary Leadership Principles. I can't remember the book it comes from. It's they're quite old, goes back to the 80s actually, and I'll have to double check.
Yeah, there's several books. I've also read another book where it talked about the 5 principles of leadership. So you'll find it in several different books that have been written on the 5 principles of leadership. But Gavin, that ends our podcast for the day. So with that note, we're going to say, hey, this is Workplace Wizards, and we're helping HR personnel, owners, and all managers. Hey, we want to inspire leaders to inspire others. And that's our podcast for today. Gavin, you got any closing words?
No, I haven't. I think keep following us on this journey, and hopefully we can help you inspire your team and really get those outcomes that you're looking for.
All right. And for that, we'll say goodbye.
Bye-bye.